Good morning, Year 10. I hope you've had a lovely week and that you are looking forward to half term. This is your solutions video for week 7's 20 questions. So it should say 5.2 in the corner. Make sure you mark them as we go along. So the first one is subtracting fractions. So we need to make sure that the denominator is the same on both of them. So the easiest way to do this is times the bottom two together. So 8 times 5 is 40. So let's pop that on the bottom of our two fractions. This side, because we times 8 by 5, we're going to times the whole of this side by 5. And because we times 5 by 8, we're going to times the whole of this side by 8. So 5 times 5 is 25. And then 8 times 2 is 16. So now all we need to do is subtract the numerators. So 25 minus 16 is 9. So our answer is going to be 9 over 40 with a strange line across the screen. So 9 over 40, that's our final answer for that one. Let me just get rid of the line. There we are. Okay, so now we've got dividing by fraction. So if we remember to divide, we remember our keep, flip, change. Okay, so we're going to keep the first fraction exactly the same. That's going to be 1/8. Then we're going to flip the second one round. So we're going to have 3 over 1. And we're going to change the divide sign in the middle to a multiply. Now, multiplying fractions is super simple. We just multiply the two numerators. So 1 times 3 is 3. And we times the denominators. So 8 times 1 is 8. So our final answer there is 3/8. Next one then. Estimate 928 minus 360. So here, we're going to, first of all, we're going to round them to one significant figure, okay? So if we round 928 to one significant figure, we're going to look at our first number, which is a 9. And then we're going to look at the second number, which is a 2. So because that number is 4 or below, I can leave 9 as it is, and therefore it's 900. Same for this one. So we've got a 3 this time, but the next number is a 6. So that means that goes up to 4, and that becomes 400. So estimated 900 minus 400 is 500 plus another wiggly line. So there's our answer there. Okay, so next one, it says estimate, a little bit more complicated here. So 8.7 minus 5.2 over 0.45, okay? So here we're going to do the same. We're going to go to one significant figure. So 8.7, we're going to round that up to 9. And 5.2, we'll round that down to 5. And then 0.45, we can't really round that. We're going to do one significant figure again, okay? So we'll do 0.5 or a half. So 9 minus 5 is 4. And then we want to divide that by 0.5. Now remember, when we're dividing by decimals, we can times both sides by the same, so 10, 100, 1,000, and then the answer will be the same. So if I've got 40 now, because I've times that by 10, and I make that into 5 because I've times that by 10, whatever the answer is to this, as long as I did the same to both sides, is the same answer. So 40 divided by 5 is 8. So that's my estimated answer there, okay? So on to the next one then. So it says increase 520 pounds by 35%. Okay, so as we did last week, we'll do one non-calculator and then we'll do one calculator because there's two, okay? So increase means go up. So the first thing I need to do is find out what 35% of 520 pounds is. So I'm going to do that by finding my 10%. So 10%, I'm just going to divide it by 10, which would be 52 pounds. So now, to find 30%, I'm going to times that by 3. So that would mean that 30% is 156. But I still need 5%, so I'm going to have to divide that number by 2 to get 5%, which would be 26. Okay, so 5% would be 26 pounds. And then I can just add my 156 to my 26, which would equal 182. So now I know that 35% of £520 is £182, but it told me to increase that £520. So I'm going to have to add on my 520, okay? So if I add 520 to my 35%, I get 702. Okay, so 702 pounds is my final answer for that one. Okay, so as promised, we'll do this one the calculator method. Okay, so we know how to find, we know how to convert, percentages into decimals, and that's going to be our key skill here. Okay, so if I want to decrease, that means go down, £180 by 30%. So originally, my £180 is 100%, isn't it? But I want to decrease that by 30%. So I need to take that away. So 100% minus 30% equals 70%. So that's what I want to find. I want to find 70% of 180. Now to find 70%, I take my 70% and I turn it into a decimal. Now to turn it into a decimal, I take my 70 and I divide by 100. So if I divide that by 100, I get 0.7. So now I can just take my decimal and times it by the original amount. So I can do 180 times 0.7, and that would equal 126, okay? So that's my answer there. Oh, with another line. But £126 for that one, okay? Okay, on to the next one then. So it says find the nth term, okay? So this is a sequence. So the first thing we need to do is figure out the difference between these numbers. So what's happening between 0 and 3? Well, we're adding 3. 3 and 6, we're adding 3. And 6 and 9, we're adding 3. So once I've found the sequence, I pop that number down first, and then I put an n after it. The n just represents the number of the number in the sequence. So that's the first number in the sequence, second number, third, fourth, etc. So now I've got 3n. The next thing I've got to do is ask myself, how did I get from 3 to the first number in my sequence? What did I add or subtract? Well, in this case, to get from 3 to 0, I had to minus 3. So now I can test to see whether it works. So let's see if it works for the fourth number in the sequence. As we know with algebra, when you have a number and a letter next to each other, it means that you multiply. So here, if I want the fourth number in the sequence, I'd put 4 where n is. I'd do 3 times 4 equals 12. I'd minus the 3, and that equals 9. So I know that I'm correct. On to the next one then. So what's the difference between 14 and 23? Well, we've added 9. Between 23 and 32, we've added 9. And 32 and 41, I've added 9. So now I can pop my 9 down with my n afterwards. And then I've got to ask myself, how do I get from 9 to the first number in my sequence, which is 14? Well, in this case, I'm going to add 5. So let's see if that works for the second number in the sequence. So pop my 2 where the n is. 2 times 9 is 18. Add the 5 is 23. So I know that I'm correct. On to this one then. So we've got solve this equation. Now when it says solve, I just want to find out what x equals. So I want to get all the x's on one side and all the numbers on the other side. So here it says 13x plus 3. Well, I want to get rid of that plus 3. So to get rid of it, I'm going to do the opposite. I'm going to minus 3. But I've got to do that to both sides. So that leaves me with 13x on this side and then minus 23. Take away another 3 is going to be minus 26. But I've got 13 x's. I don't want 13 x's, I just want 1. So I'm going to have to divide by 13 on both sides, which leaves me with just x on this side and minus 2 on this side. So now I know that x equals minus 2. Okay, next one then. So it says 7x minus 2 equals 6x plus 1. So a little bit more difficult because we've got x on both sides, but nothing we can't work out. So I don't like minus numbers, so I'm going to get rid of this minus 2. So I'm going to add 2, so all I'm left with is 7x on this side, and I'm going to add 2 to this side. So I've got 6x plus 3. But now I need to get rid of this 6x because I want all my x's on one side. So if I take away 6x from 7x, all I'm left with is x. And if I've got rid of this, all I'm left with is 3. So I know that x equals 3. Okay, so please join me on video number 2 for the solutions to the final 10 questions.